Hello everyone, the course name is Banking Regulation and Operations. The unit is Principles of Bank Lending, and the topic that I'll be covering through this presentation is on the different types of securities. So to start with the first type of securities, which is share, stock and bonds. So stocks are shares in the ownership of a business, while bonds are a form of debt that the issuing entity promised to repay at some point in the future. A balance between the two types of funding must be achieved to ensure a proper capital structure for a business. So in simple terms, most of you might be knowing what a share or a bond is, right? Share gives you a unit of ownership in any firm, whereas bond is like you are, uh, okay, you are someone who gives debt to a company and the company is indebted to you, right? So this is the basic concept of shares and bonds. So they differ due to certain features, priority of repayment. So when it comes to priority of repayment for a business, the bond holders or the debenture holders, okay, debt holders, those are the people who are given the first priority whenever it comes to repayment, right? And the shareholders, especially the equity shareholders, are the people who get the last priority in case of repayment. The periodic payments, again, for bondholders, the periodic payment of interest is a mandatory thing, whereas for shareholders, the payment need to be made only when there is enough profit. So that is the reason why equity shareholders are always considered to be residual holders. And last one is the voting rights. So the bond holders or the debenture holders, they never get a voting right in a firm, whereas the shareholders are considered to be the owners of the number of equities they are holding. So the owners of that much portion of the business, and therefore they have the voting rights. Coming to the next type of security, which is open-ended funds and close-ended funds. So these are different types of mutual funds. So mutual fund is one of the type of securities. Again, in mutual funds, we have open-ended funds and close-ended funds. So open-ended funds, in open-ended funds, the share price is based on the net asset value, and the shares are created and destroyed as necessary. Whereas in closed-ended funds, the share price is based on the supply and demand, and there is a set number of shares. Okay, so I'll give you an example of a open-ended funds or a closed-ended fund. Open-ended fund is no then suppose you are an investor who is doing trading in some kind of website like Sharekhan or something, where you keep on buying and selling the shares, right? So there are certain shares which is available throughout the period. For example, the shares of some companies, ABC company, okay, which is always available. So it is an open-ended fund. There is no definite period for which it is available, right? So an investor can go and buy as and when he requires it. So the share price, that share is priced at the net asset value, and as and when the, no shares are created or destroyed, it is based on the necessity of the investor, right? Whereas a close-ended funds, the typical example would be the case of an IPO. So IPO is normally issued for a definite period of time, and before that only you can go and buy a share under an IPO. So it is a close-ended funds where the availability is for a certain period, and after that it gets closed, right? So in case of close-ended fund, there is no load. No load means there is no sales commission which is charged, because the company directly sells the shares in an IPO. Whereas in case of an open-ended funds, investor have to pay a sales commission on top of the NAV, right? So this is how an open-ended fund and a close-ended funds work in a mutual fund. Coming to the third type of securities, which is index fund. So the name itself might be giving you a good idea about what is an index fund, right? So there is something called a collection of securities for an index fund. So index fund can be either in the form of bonds, or it can be in the form of stocks, or can be in the form of a combination of these two. And as the name itself suggests, it copies the performance. Okay, the stocks or the bonds or the collection of the securities in an index fund, they copy their performance from some well-known index. Okay, for example, in India, we do have Bank Nifty or Nifty 50 stocks, right? So they normally copy the performance of the Nifty index, right? So whenever a security or the collection of security follows some index, well-known index of the country, then it is known to be an index fund. So Warren Buffett had once said that the best way to own common stock is through an index fund. The reason is it gives you diversification of funds, the simple, no, the most important requirement for an investor, right? And it gives you cheaper funds because it's always based on some nifty or those kind of no indexes. So it is cheaper when compared to the no stocks that you're buying without having a no link to an index. And the third one, it gives you liquidity. You can buy and sell it whenever you require. And last one is returns. Okay, there is a normal, it is no when compared to normal stocks, this is having a no comparatively better security. So returns is somewhat guaranteed in case of a index funds when compared to a normal fund, right? But at the same time, you have disadvantages. There is no control, because if the indexes move no towards extremes, then obviously the funds will also be going in that direction. Second one is upside limited, right? You cannot make extraordinary profits like in the cases of some other stocks, okay, because it is always linked to the index, and therefore it cannot, the prices will not be moving beyond a no level. So you cannot make something called as an extraordinary profit. And the last one is lesser flexibility. There is not much of a flexibility because their movements is always copied by the performance of an index. So this is typically what an index funds look like. Coming to the next type of security, which is a commercial paper. Okay, so commercial paper is a commonly used type of unsecured short-term debt instrument issued by corporations, typically used for the financing of payroll, accounts payable, and inventories, and meeting other short-term liabilities. So the maturities on commercial paper typically last several days and rarely range longer than 270 days. So the commercial paper is usually issued at a discount from face value and reflects prevailing market interest rates. So this picture will give you a complete idea about what a commercial paper is and how it looks like. So there is a company, okay, and they might be in requirement for a short-term funding. Obviously, they start selling commercial paper of that particular company. Okay, so there might be investors who might be investing in this commercial paper. And normally when the company issues a commercial paper, they issue it at a discount. That means if the commercial paper is having a face value of 1,000 rupee, and the company is issuing it at a discount of say 10 percentage, then obviously the commercial paper will be available for the investor at something called 900 rupee, right? So this is how a commercial paper works, and this helps the companies to rate short-term debt, right? And coming to the next instrument, which is called a certificate of deposit. So the certificate of deposit is a product offered by banks and credit unions that provide an interest rate premium in exchange for the customer agreeing to leave a lump sum deposit untouched for a predetermined period of time. Almost all the consumer financial institutions offer them, although it's up to each bank which CD terms it wants to offer, how much higher the rate will be compared to the bank's savings and money market products, and what penalties it applies for earlier withdrawals, right? So this is how no you might be wondering that then how is it different from an FD? So a certificate of deposit are somewhat similar to normal fixed deposit of the banks. Only difference is that in certificate of deposit there is nothing called withdrawal before the tenure, right? So if you are depositing in a certificate of deposit scheme for say 5 years, you need to be locked in for that entire 5 years. Okay, you cannot withdraw the principal, no, neither can you withdraw the interest. So your principal as well as interest remains with the bank for the entire duration of 5 years, and at the end of 5 years only you can withdraw that money. So this is how a certificate of deposit works, whereas in FD you know that you can either get the option of withdrawal of interest in between, or you can even do pre-closure of your FDs. So certificate of deposit does not give that facility. And last type of security that I'll be discussing in this presentation is the treasury bill. So when the government is going to the financial market to raise money, it can do it by issuing two types of debt instruments. So treasury bills and government bonds. Treasury bills are issued when the government need money for a shorter period, while bonds are issued when it need money for more than 5 years or something like that, right? So treasury bills, generally shortened as T-bills, have a maximum maturity of 364 days. Government of India presently issues T-bills in three tenors, namely 91 day, 182 days, and 364 days. So you might be getting a clear idea after reading this, like treasury bill is something which again helps governments to raise short-term finances for some of its requirements, okay, in which the maximum maturity period for a treasury bill will be 364 days. So the government of India currently issues three types of T-bills: 90 days T-bills, 182 days T-bills, and 364 days T-bills. In April 1997, the government has also issued a T-bill for 14 days, which was the first of its kind at that point of time. So these are the various documents in or types of securities. In addition to that, we have also something called MBS, which is not very popular, prominent in India, but yes, in US it is. US and countries like that, the MBS is very, no, very popular. So I'll be discussing that as well, along with the different types of securities. So what do you mean by a mortgage-backed security? So this is how a mortgage-backed security looks like. Okay, so suppose there is a customer called John who wants to buy a house. Okay, so he approaches a bank, and the bank gives him no 1,000 or $150,000, right, as a loan. And for getting that loan, obviously John places his home as a mortgage, right? So now the bank gets a mortgage for lending out to a customer called John. So there will be n number of Johns or n number of customers called Johns for this bank, and they when they get these kind of loans, there will be n number of mortgages also coming to the bank, right? So now what the bank does is bank bundles these mortgages into a pool, right? And this pool is being sold to someone called a larger bank. Okay, and this larger bank buys the pool of various mortgages. So there might be a pool of mortgages which no, have only homes and properties. There might be a pools of mortgages which have some kind of movable properties. So all these pools are brought by the larger bank from these smaller banks, and these larger banks issue such no mortgage backed instruments or pools, which is popularly known as MBS or mortgage backed securities, as an investment option to the investors who wants to buy such MBS, right? So there might be n number of investors in the market who buys or invests in the MBS system, right? So this is how a mortgage backed security is created and how it functions in a system. And the last type of security that I'll be discussing, which is also not very prominent in our country, but still this is also a type of security that you should be knowing. So it is called warrant. So warrants are a derivative that give the right but not the obligation to buy or sell a security, most commonly an equity at a certain price before the expiration. So the price at which the underlying security can be bought or sold is referred to as an exercise price or strike price. An American warrant can be exercised at any time on or before the expiration date, while the European warrants can only be exercised on the expiration date. So warrants that give the right to buy a security are known as call warrants. Those that give the right to sell a security are known as put warrants. So you might have got a good idea about what a warrant looks like after reading this. So warrant is a kind of derivative that gives the holder the right but not the obligation to buy buy or sell a security. So normally that security will be equity in case of a warrant. That's why we call it as a stock warrant. Okay, so he gets the right but not the obligation to buy or sell a equity warrant at a certain price before the expiration, right? So this is what the benefit of warrant is. Like you don't have to actually buy the instrument, but you get an option to buy or not to buy, no, depending upon the market situations. So there are two types of warrants which are available. One is called American warrant and second one is a European warrant. In American warrant, the a person who is investing or who is buying the warrant gets the right but not the obligation to to buy or sell at any time, okay, or at any time before the expiration date. Suppose the expiration date is in December 2020, he can buy or sell at any point before December 2020, right? But in a European warrant, that option is not available. If you are buying an option, a European option or European warrant for say December 30, 2020, you can exercise it only on that particular date. So normally American warrant is the most preferred one and that is the most popular one. So these are the various types of securities which is available in in the scenario, in Indian scenario as well as in the global scenario. And I just hope this gives a very good idea about the various types of securities that is available in the market. Thank you so much for watching.